They said miracles vanished thousands of years ago. They said angels stopped watching. They said God no longer spoke to men. They were wrong. The first whisper came on a rainy night in New Avalon, a city drowning in neon lights, corruption, and silence. People had stopped looking for God, but God, or something calling itself God, had begun looking for them. Ethan Ward, a former theology student turned detective, was the first to hear it. The whisper appeared in every recording device inside the precinct. He walks again. At first, Ethan thought it was a prank. Then the bodies began appearing, not murdered, not mutilated, but marked, each with a symbol burned onto their skin, a circle split by a single vertical line, as if the world itself was being divided. Doctors couldn't explain it. Priests refused to touch it, and every witness described the same impossible figure, a man made of light and shadow at the same time, his face shining like the sun, but his eyes hollow like a void. They called him the Walker. Some believed he was an angel. Others believed he was the devil wearing God's skin. Ethan didn't believe in either, until the Walker spoke to him directly. "Ethan Ward," the voice echoed behind him, although no one was there. "You will judge this world in my name, because the God they worship is not the one who returned." And on that night, as the rain turned black and fell like ash, Ethan realized this was not the second coming. This was the first warning. The night Ethan first heard the voice, something in the city changed. Lights flickered, dogs howled, and every church bell in New Avalon rang at the same time, though none were scheduled to. Ethan couldn't sleep. The whisper kept replaying inside his head, as if the words had carved themselves into his skull. "You will judge this world in my name, judge." Who was he to judge anyone? By sunrise, Ethan had already convinced himself it was hallucinations, stress, lack of sleep, too many unsolved cases. But as he reached the precinct, every officer turned to look at him, the same way you'd look at someone radioactive. His partner, Detective Mara Liu, approached with a pale face. "Ethan, you need to see this." She led him to an interrogation room. On the wall, written in something that looked like burned soot, were the words, "He has been chosen." Ethan froze. Mara whispered, "This wasn't here last night. Cameras didn't catch anything." No one went inside. Before Ethan could respond, an officer rushed in. "Ward, you're going to want to see the new victim." They drove to the outskirts, an abandoned subway tunnel sealed years earlier. Someone had broken the seal. Inside, under dim emergency lights, lay the body of a homeless woman. But she wasn't burned or cut. She was kneeling, hands clasped as if in prayer, eyes open and glowing faintly, it looks like. "Reverence," Mara whispered, but Ethan had already noticed the symbol burned into her chest. The circle split by a vertical line, the mark, and this time it was fresh, still warm to the touch. Mara said, "Medical examiner thinks it wasn't caused by fire. Whatever did this, it didn't burn from the outside." Ethan swallowed. "It burned from the soul." Mara stared at him. "How do you know that?" But before he could answer, every emergency light in the tunnel flickered twice, then went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. The officers cursed. Flashlights clicked on. Mara drew her gun. Then something moved past Ethan silently, like a shadow changing shape. He turned. There he was, the Walker, a man-shaped silhouette filled with shifting darkness, edges outlined by a trembling, blinding light. His face was unseeable, blurred, as if reality refused to hold it. but his eyes where eyes should have been glowed like two hollow suns. Every flashlight died at the same time. Officers screamed, guns dropped, someone fainted. The walker stepped toward Ethan, only toward Ethan. When he spoke, it wasn't a voice. It was a vibration inside Ethan's bones. She was the first. Those who are marked are the ones I show mercy. The unmarked will face judgment. Ethan whispered, terrified. What judgment? The walker leaned close. Light cracked from his form like lightning trapped inside flesh. Your world has worshipped a God who does not answer. I am the one who returned. And you, Ethan Ward, will decide who is worthy to remain. Then, in a blink, he vanished. Flashlights and lights snapped back on. Officers looked around, confused, terrified. But the body of the homeless woman had changed. The mark on her chest was gone, replaced with a single word that hadn't been there before, seen. And Ethan understood something in that moment, something far more horrifying than the creature itself. The walker wasn't just choosing victims, he was building a list. A list Ethan would be forced to finalize. The city of New Avalon slept uneasily that night. Or perhaps it was not sleeping at all. Ethan Ward didn't know which. Every shadow seemed to twitch in anticipation. Every whisper of wind carrying a message meant only for him. The mark burned faintly on his forearm, a soft glow that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. It was a heartbeat that felt far too large for a human chest. He had thought the first encounter with the walker was a nightmare. He had been wrong. The whisper returned this time inside his mind, echoing in syllables he could not speak aloud. Judge. The words stretched and bent, filling his skull with a cold certainty. The world would bend under his choice. Ethan sat in his apartment, lights off, curtains drawn. He could feel the city's pulse, heartbeat, its size, its hidden terror. And somewhere beneath it all, the presence of the walker lingered, patient, eternal. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. Then the first rule arrived, not in words, not through voice, but as a vision. In the mirror of his bathroom, he saw a man, not himself, standing in the reflection. The man's eyes glowed hollow, deep as the void, and yet he was familiar, almost intimate. Behind him, the reflection of the city stretched into impossible angles. Shadows bled into streets. Faces moved where there were none. Rule 1, the chosen sees all, and all sees the chosen. He blinked, and the vision receded, leaving only the faint glow of the mark. His apartment felt suddenly too small. His own breath sounded loud, alien. He needed guidance. Someone who could explain the impossible. Dr. Mara Liu had vanished weeks ago, leaving only cryptic messages in online forums about the emergence of the first marked Ethan's. Hands trembled as he opened her last note. Do not attempt to fight it alone. The walker follows thought as well as flesh. It judges your intent before you act, and those found wanting will vanish before the dawn. The words made no sense at first. Then the second rule revealed itself in the creeping shadows outside his window. Rule 2, intention guides reality. Actions without true purpose are punished. He realized it instantly. He had been trying to prepare, to fight, to learn. And yet the walker had already anticipated every move. The city had become a chessboard. He was both pawn and king. A sounda scraping low and wetros from the alley below. Ethan froze. The glow of the mark flared. The walker had arrived. No figure, no shape, only the distortion of the air itself, as if the darkness had weight. Then a voice, closer, sharper than before, slicing into his mind. You will choose. You will see who deserves the world and who will not survive it. The third rule descended, as if the city itself whispered it through the hum of broken street lamps and distant sirens. Rule 3: judgment cannot be reversed. Mercy is given or denied at the instant of choice. Ethan's stomach turned. He had imagined moral dilemmas before, but nothing like this. He would not only observe the world, he would decide its fate, instantly, invisibly. And failure meant more than death. The darkness twisted, creeping along the pavement, reaching for him in tendrils of shadow. It paused at the foot of his building. The walker's presence was undeniable, yet impossible to define. Then a figure emerged from the foggaman in a long coat, face obscured by shadows, eyes glinting with an unnatural light. Ethan Ward, it said. Do you understand what has begun? Ethan swallowed hard. I think so. You think? The voice hissed, carrying centuries of knowledge. There is no room for thinking, only seeing, only choosing, and only surviving until the final judgment. The manor entities stepped closer. Each movement caused the streetlights to shiver and the air to ripple. Shadows bent around him, twisting reality like wet clay. Rule 4, it said. The chosen is never alone. Allies and enemies alike are drawn into the judgment, whether by intent or accident. Those you touch and those who touch you are bound to your will and your failure alike. Ethan's mind reeled. He was already entangled with people he did not know, with lives he had never touched. Every friend, every stranger, every observer of the world had now become part of this unseen scale of judgment. The entity raised a hand. The alley behind it melted into a void, showing glimpses of countless fates, people disappearing, cities crumbling, strangers screaming as the shadows moved through them like a slow tide. Ethan turned to run. The mark flared brightly, as if warning him. But the entity's voice cut through the hum of reality again. Rule 5. To hesitate is to choose failure. To act without clarity is to punish innocence. And then the darkness surged forward. Ethan braced himself and understood. The city, the people, even his own mind were now the chessboard of a game he could not pause. He would move or the game would move without him, and nothing would survive. He was chosen, he was alone, and the walker was patient. The city never looked the same again. Shadows lingered long after the streetlights flickered out. Every reflective surface, the glass of a window, the black water of a puddle, even the chrome of a car became a mirror of something that should not exist. And Ethan could see it all. He knew he had no choice. The walker would not leave him alone. And now, for the first time, he understood the cruel truth. The judgment began immediately. The alley Ethan ran down the alley behind his apartment. The mark on his arm pulsed violently, sending waves of heat through his skin. The darkness ahead rippled, and he could hear it, soft, wet, scraping, like claws moving across stone. From the corner of his eye, shapes flickered, people who shouldn't be there. Figures walking slowly, their faces blank, their eyes hollow. And each time Ethan tried to look directly, the figures vanished, leaving only a lingering echo of despair. He rounded a corner, and the world shifted. The city streets were now longer than they should have been, distorted. Every turn seemed to bring him back to the same alley. Then he saw it. A young woman, crouched and trembling against the wall. Her eyes glowed faintly, like she carried a light within her. "Help me," she whispered. The shadows moved around her like liquid, reaching, curling. Ethan froze. The mark burned. He knew instinctively, saving her is part of the trial. He stepped forward, the test of intent. As he reached for her, the walker appeared. Not in the alley, not in the air, but in the very fabric of the moment. The shadows twisted, forming its impossible silhouette. "You move," it said in a voice that seemed both everywhere and nowhere. "You act, but why?" Ethan faltered. I'm helping her." The walker's void-like eyes seemed to pierce his mind. Intent matters. Purpose matters. The shadows lunged. The woman froze. Ethan raised his hands instinctively, and the mark flared with white-hot light. The shadows recoiled, but the walker's voice returned. "Do you act because you care, or because you fear the judgment?" Ethan's stomach turned. The truth was undeniable. A part of him acted because of fear, because he could not survive the trial if he failed. The light on his arm burned brighter, almost painfully. Then, in a sudden burst, the mark projected a shield of blinding radiance around the woman. The shadows hissed and shrieked, retreating into the cracks of the alley. The walker's presence lingered, silent, judging. "You have passed the first measure," it said finally. "But beware, fear and hesitation will not be forgiven in the trials to come." The woman looked at him, wide-eyed. Who are you?" Ethan swallowed, chest heaving. I don't know yet." The second measure the walker withdrew into the air, vanishing as if it had never been. But its voice remained, echoing in Ethan's mind. "The city watches, every thought, every impulse, every breath. The judgment does not pause. You cannot hide, you cannot rest. And soon, the first ones to fail will appear." As the woman ran off, Ethan felt a cold presence behind him. He turned slowly. A man in a dark trench coat stood there, ordinary at first glance. But his eyes reflected the void. He smiled, not warmly, but knowingly. "You are the chosen," the man said, "and your trial begins now. If you fail, New Avalon will pay the price." Before Ethan could respond, the shadows surged again, this time from the ground beneath the street. Figures of pale, distorted humans crawled out of cracks, their mouths silent, their intentions unknowable. Ethan raised his arm. The mark flared. His heart hammered. And suddenly, he understood. The first failure would not be his but someone else's. The trial had already begun. The realization. As he fled deeper into the twisting streets, Ethan understood something chilling. The walker's trials were not just physical. They measured moral intent, fear, hesitation. Every choice he made could condemn or save others, instantly, invisibly. The city itself was now a labyrinth of judgment. Every shadow a test, every stranger a measurement. Ethan's grip on reality began to slip. And yet, despite the terror, a small defiant part of him whispered, "I will not fail. I will not let this darkness win." And from the corner of his eye he saw it, a faint, glowing mark etched into the wall, the same shape as his own, a warning, a guide, or a promise. The first trial was over, but the next one would come faster, and the stakes would only grow higher. The gathering shadows, the night deepened over New Avalon. The city had grown silent, but Ethan could feel it breathing. Every alley, every rooftop, every empty street vibrated with the pulse of something ancient and alive. The walker had vanished, but its presence lingered like a shadow beneath his skin. He had survived the first trial, but survival meant nothing. The whispering rules echoed in Tent Guide's reality. Judgment cannot be reversed. To hesitate is to choose failure. A city of shadows. As he ran through the streets, Ethan noticed changes. Shadows moved unnaturally elongated, independent, crawling across walls like living ink. Figures appeared at the edge of his vision. Ordinary people, but their eyes were dark pools, reflecting the void. They didn't speak, didn't breathe. They simply watched, as if testing him. The mark on his arm pulsed with light, growing stronger, reacting to the unseen eyes around him. Ethan realized the truth. The walker's trials weren't just physical. They were moral, psychic, spiritual. Every action mattered. Every thought mattered. He paused in the square. Streetlights flickered and went out. The city was plunged into darkness. And then, from the black, he heard whispers, not voices, but ideas. Decide, choose, judge. The first ally, a sudden movement, caught his attention. A woman stepped from the shadows. Her hair was silver, eyes sharp, calculating. She carried no weapon, yet Ethan felt her presence as if it radiated authority. "You're the new chosen," she said. Her voice was calm but commanding. "I've been watching you." Ethan backed away instinctively. Who are you?" "Call me Celine," she gestured toward the shadows. "They call this city the Gathering. It is not just a place, it's a test, and you are the fulcrum." Ethan's heart raced. The fulcrum of what? Celine smiled faintly. Of balance, of survival, of judgment. The walker walks, and the shadows gather. They feed on indecision, fear, hesitation. You have survived the first trial, but the gathering begins now. The first encounter, as if summoned by her words, shadows surged from the streets. Figures twisted and reformed, half human, half void. Ethan raised his arm instinctively. The mark flared, pushing the darkness back. Celine moved beside him. "Do not think of them as enemies," she instructed. "They are reflections of choice. They will not attack unless you do not act. Your intent matters more than your strength." Ethan's mind spun. The shadows surged, but he understood. To hesitate was to fail. To act blindly could destroy the innocent. He stepped forward, focusing on the figure nearest him. It mirrored a man he had once passed in the street, unremarkable, but now twisted by the walker's will. He extended his hand, letting the mark's light flow through him. The figure froze, then collapsed into a pile of smoke, dissipating harmlessly. Ethan's chest heaved. Celine nodded approvingly. "You are learning," she said. "But this is only the beginning. The rules expand as they moved through the streets," Celine explained. "The walker judges everything. Every thought, every intention, every action is measured. Shadows are not enemies. They are tests. They expose your moral flaws. Allies can become enemies, and enemies can become allies. The balance of judgment shifts constantly. Time is not linear in the gathering. You may face consequences for actions not yet taken, and decisions you make now may reverberate endlessly." Ethan shivered. The city seemed alive, listening, waiting. Then he heard a deep, resonant voice that seemed to echo from every corner and every shadow. "The chosen is awake. The first reckoning begins." The choice ahead, in the center of the square, a young child stood alone. Shadows surrounded him, thick and writhing. He trembled, terrified. Ethan recognized him. He had seen the boy earlier, playing in the streets, oblivious to the darkness. Celine whispered, "This is your first real test. Do not fail. The child's life and the balance of the gathering rests in your hands." Ethan's breath caught. Every rule he had learned pressed down on him. To hesitate was to fail. To act without clarity could doom the innocent. He stepped forward. The mark glowed brighter than ever. Shadows recoiled as if burned. The child's eyes met his trusting, frightened, helpless. Ethan reached out, letting his intent flow through the mark. He focused on protection, on clarity, on the unshakable certainty that this life must be preserved. The shadows screamed a high, piercing sound that cut through his skull, but the mark's light surged, enveloping the boy. Slowly, the darkness retreated, fading into nothing. The child ran to safety, and Ethan fell to his knees, exhausted. Celine placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have passed the first true measure," she said quietly. "But the gathering is only growing stronger. The walker watches, and soon you will face the second trial." The night in New Avalon had grown heavier. Ethan could feel it in his chest. The city was awake, but not alive in any human sense. Every brick, every alley, every deserted street pulsed with awareness. The walker had moved beyond testing him in shadows. It now orchestrated the city itself. Even the wind seemed purposeful, shifting to whisper warnings he couldn't yet decipher. The streets speak. Ethan walked through the empty avenues, Celine beside him. The city was unnaturally quiet. The faint hum of power vibrated beneath their feet, as though the streets themselves were listening. "Can you feel it?" Celine asked. Her eyes scanned the darkness, alert for movement that Ethan couldn't see. Yes," he said, shivering. "It's like the city itself is alive, like it knows us." "Exactly," Celine said. "The walker has begun to use the city as its instrument. Every shadow, every reflection, every silent corner is part of its will and its learning. It adapts." A faint movement caught Ethan's eye. A shadow detached from a wall and moved like smoke, forming a humanoid shape. Its eyes burned with an empty fire. "Another test?" he asked. Celine shook her head. "Not a test, a messenger. The walker is watching how you respond." The figure paused, tilting its head. Then, without a sound, it vanished into the cracks of the pavement. Ethan realized with a chill, the walker was everywhere even where nothing existed. The first warning, they reached a square where the streetlights flickered. In the center, an empty fountain gurgled with black water. Reflections in the water rippled unnaturally. Then words appeared on its surface, glowing faintly. "Choose or perish." Ethan stared, heart pounding. Celine stepped closer. "The walker is giving you the first real warning. The shadows will grow. It will force choices upon you. Some will be trivial, some catastrophic. Every choice will be observed, recorded, judged." He swallowed hard. "And if I fail, failure has consequences far beyond death," Celine said. "Lives, realities, they unravel." A sudden chill swept over them. From the black water of the fountain, hands erupted pale, twisted, clawing at the air. Shadows poured from cracks in the surrounding pavement. Ethan instinctively raised his arm. The mark flared like molten light, sending a wave that threw the creatures back. But then, a voice nod from the shadows, not from Celine, but inside his head, spoke. "This city listens. Every act, every thought, the balance is shifting. Will you rise or fall?" The test of witnesses. The shadows coalesced into forms. Citizens of New Avalon, familiar faces distorted into hollow shells, screaming silently. The city had become a stage. Ethan was both actor and audience. Celine whispered, "They are witnesses. The walker uses their forms to judge you. Fear, hesitation, indecision, each weakness is amplified." Ethan stepped forward, focusing his will. The mark blazed, connecting with every shadow. Light flowed through him, washing over the hollow forms. Slowly they began to dissolve, leaving only faint echoes in the alleys. "You are learning," Celine said. "But the real challenge is coming. The walker will force a choice where no option is safe, and the city will watch." Ethan felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. The pulse of the city aligned with the beat of his heart. He knew the next trial would be far worse. The arrival of the first victims, a scream tore through the air. It came from the east end of the city, distant but sharp. Ethan and Celine sprinted toward it. In an alley, they found a family, parents and two children, trapped by shadows that twisted like liquid, closing in. Ethan's mark flared automatically, but the shadows resisted, testing him, pulling at his fear and hesitation. Celine shouted, "Focus. You must act with intent, not instinct." Ethan reached deep, letting the mark's light flow outward in a perfect sphere. The shadows shrieked and retreated, but not all disappeared. Two of the shadow forms lunged at the children. Ethan flung his hands, and the mark burst in a blinding flash. When the light faded, the family was gone. Only blackened impressions remained on the ground. Selena's eyes were wide with shock. The walker's rules are expanding. Your first direct failure has consequences. Already felt, Ethan fell to his knees. He had saved some, but the rest vanished before his eyes. And in the distance, a whisper carried across the city. "Your judgment begins. The shadows remember." Ethan stood slowly. Fear coursed through him, but so did resolve. He was not powerless. The city, the shadows, the walker itself, they could not break him if he understood the rules. Celine placed a hand on his shoulder. "The gathering is only beginning. The walker will escalate, and soon, the first true choice will come that will define not only your fate, but the fate of the city itself." Ethan nodded. His mark pulsed brightly, a promise, a warning, a weapon. The walker had awakened New Avalon, and it would not rest until it had tested every soul. The city of New Avalon had grown eerily quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause, waiting. Ethan walked through the empty streets, Celine close behind, the glow of his mark casting long, trembling shadows. He knew this was different. The first trial had tested his intent. The gathering had measured his ability to act, but this was personal. The walker had chosen its first real victims. The square of choices. Ethan reached the central square, where the streetlights flickered uncertainly. A group of citizens stood there, men, women, children. Their faces were blank, almost serene, yet an invisible pressure pressed against their minds. Celine whispered, "The walker has forced the first moral choice. One of them must live. The rest will vanish. Your mark decides. And your intent determines who is worthy." Ethan's chest tightened. He had not expected to make this kind of decision so soon. A voice echoed through the square, low and hollow, yet undeniably present. "Choose, chosen. The first judgment begins." The weight of the mark on Ethan's arm pulsed violently, reacting to every heartbeat, every breath. He could feel the lives of the innocents, as if they were threads woven through his own body. Hesitation threatened to paralyze him. Selena's voice broke through the rising panic. "Focus on intent, not survival. Not fear, intent, purity of purpose." Ethan closed his eyes. Images of the city, the people, the families he had passed on the streets flickered before him. The walker's whispers slithered into his mind. Who deserves the world, and who does not? The decision. He opened his eyes, The choice came with unbearable clarity. Some faces were marked by subtle darkness, unseen flaws amplified by the walker. Others glowed faintly, untouched by corruption or fear. Ethan raised his hand, the mark flaring in response. He focused on those with the faint glow, ones who carried hope, who could endure the trials to come. The rest he let go. A wave of light burst from his mark, engulfing the square. Shadows hissed and twisted, then disintegrated. Those chosen to live stumbled but remained upright. Those left behind vanished silently, leaving only empty spaces and a faint echo of despair. Selene exhaled sharply. It's done. The first judgment is passed. Ethan sank to his knees, trembling. The weight of the lives he had decided upon pressed down like stone. The walker's response, the air thickened. A cold, incomprehensible presence filled the square. The walker had returned. Its voice was like the grinding of distant glaciers. So, the chosen has begun. Mercy and discernment, not yet enough. The threads of judgment are fragile, and one mistake, one hesitation, will unravel more than you can imagine. Ethan's mark flared violently, almost blinding him. The citizens he had spared clung to each other, trembling, unaware of the cosmic forces that had determined their fates. Selene placed her hand on his shoulder. Do not falter. The walker tests your mind, your heart, your very soul. And next time, the stakes will rise. The aftermath, as Ethan and Selene moved through the streets, the city itself seemed to hum with awareness. Every shadow, every silent building, every abandoned street whispered and shifted. The first judgment had set a precedent. The walker now knew the extent of Ethan's resolve, and it would escalate. Ethan realized something terrifying. The next trial would be even more personal, more intricate, and more cruel. He could not rely on instinct or luck. Every choice, every breath, every heartbeat would be scrutinized, and somewhere in the infinite darkness beyond the city, the walker waited, patient, immortal, watching. Ethan's mark pulsed steadily. It was not just a tool, it was a responsibility, a burden, a beacon, he whispered to himself, trembling yet resolute. I will not fail, not here, not now, not ever. New Avalon no longer felt like a city. It was a battlefield of perception, a living organism of fear. The streets twisted unnaturally, alleys elongated, and every corner harbored shadows that should not exist. Ethan walked carefully, Selene at his side. The mark on his arm pulsed with a steady glow, a tether between him and the chaos around him. The first judgment had passed, but the walker was far from done. The first wave from the distance, a low rumble echoed through the streets. Shadows poured from the corners of buildings, from cracks in the pavement, and from the reflections in windows. Figures emerged, half-formed, twisted, whispering in a language that scraped at the edges of the human mind. Ethan raised his arm instinctively. The mark flared, pushing the nearest shadows back. But there were too many. Selena's voice cut through the chaos. You need to move forward. Do not let them surround you. They will test your focus, your intent. Every hesitation will be remembered. Ethan felt the first wave closing in. He extended his hand, letting the mark's light flow outward. Shadows shrieked, hissing like boiling water, but some slipped through. The moral trap, they reached a square where the shadows formed humanoid shapes. People, Ethan, new friends, strangers, acquaintances. Their eyes were hollow voids. Selene whispered urgently, "This is the walker's trap. It's testing your morality. Which lives do you save? Which do you allow to be consumed? Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't save them all. Every hesitation, every misjudgment would feed the walker. He had to act with clarity, with pure intent. The mark on his arm flared brighter than ever. He focused, letting his intent guide the light. The shapes of those who could endure survived. Those who could not vanished, leaving behind echoes of despair. Selena's eyes widened. You're learning fast, but the next wave will be worse. The true threat from the tallest building in the square. The shadows coalesced into a towering figure, the walker itself. Its form shifted constantly, impossible to comprehend fully. A mass of void and whispers. Its presence pressed on Ethan's mind like a physical weight. You grow stronger, it said, voice resonating in every thought. But strength alone will not save them. Or you, intent, clarity, and judgment fail in any and everything unravels. Ethan gritted his teeth, feeling the weight of responsibility. He could not hesitate. He could not act without clarity. Every choice was magnified. The shadows surged, faster now, swirling around him, reaching for Selene, for innocent bystanders, for everything in the square. The tether of light, Ethan planted his feet, raising his arm. The mark glowed, stretching outward, tethering the chaos to his will. Shadows screamed and twisted as he forced them back. The light connected with Selene, with the bystanders stabilizing them. The walker watched, analyzing every motion, every thought. Ethan felt his mind stretch, almost to the breaking point, as the mark fed on his intent, his focus, and his resolve. Selene called out, "Do not falter, Ethan. The walker is testing your limits." He nodded, teeth gritted, and poured every ounce of clarity and purpose into the mark. The shadows screamed, then recoiled. One by one, the humanoid forms dissolved, leaving the square temporarily empty. The aftermath, Ethan sank to his knees, exhausted. Selene placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. This was the first coordinated assault. The walker is escalating. Each wave will be faster, more intricate, more cruel. He nodded, chest heaving. The mark still pulsed faintly, a reminder of the bond between him and the city, between him and the walker. Above, the night sky seemed to ripple. A whisper echoed through the empty streets. The chosen persists, but the test has only begun. The city listens, the shadows watch. And soon, every soul will tremble beneath my gaze. Ethan stood slowly, determination hardening in his eyes. He had survived the first advance, but he knew the trials ahead would be darker and more impossible. And yet, for the first time, he felt a small spark of defiance. I will not fail. I will protect them, no matter what you throw at me. The walker had awakened New Avalon. And Ethan knew that the city, the shadows, and the darkness beyond would never be the same again. The streets of New Avalon were silent to silent. Ethan moved cautiously, each step echoing unnaturally in the darkened alleys. The city seemed to breathe around him, the shadows lingering a heartbeat longer than they should. The walker had not attacked openly today, but that did not mean it had retreated. Selene's presence beside him was steady, but even she was tense. It's preparing, she said quietly. It's not the shadows you need to fear it, it's the choices it forces you to make. Ethan's mark pulsed faintly. He could feel the weight of every life in the city pressing against it. Each heartbeat carried the echoes of the first judgment, the screams he had tried to prevent. The ones he had failed. The mirror appears. They reached an abandoned square where the fountain had long since dried. In the center, a sheet of reflective glass shimmered unnaturally. Ethan stepped closer. The glass rippled like water, then solidified into a perfect mirror. But it was not his reflection that stared back. He saw multiple versions of himself, some brave, some fearful, some twisted by despair. Each Ethan reached out, trying to warn, to beg, to attack. Their eyes glowed faintly, mirrors of the choices he had made and the lives he had touched. Celine whispered, "The walker shows you the consequences of your intent. This is the mirror of decisions. It reflects the potential paths, what you choose, what you hesitate, what you ignore. Look too long, and you might become one of them." Ethan's stomach twisted. The mirror was a labyrinth of possibilities, each reflecting a different judgment. The first choice, a voice echoed from the mirror, layered, impossible to locate. Choose, save or condemn, protect or abandon. One decision, or all are lost. From the mirror, a shadowy figure emerged, a child trapped in a flickering void. Behind him, a woman cried silently, reaching for safety. On the other side, a man whose face Ethan recognized, the neighbor he had ignored, once was being consumed by darkness. The walker's test was clear. He could save some, but not all. Hesitate, and they would all vanish. Misjudge, and the consequences would ripple through the city. Intent over instinct, Ethan closed his eyes, focusing on intent, not fear. He reached out with the mark, letting his will guide the light. He had learned hesitation could not exist, fear could not drive him, and compassion must be balanced with clarity. The child first. The light from the mark enveloped him, dissolving the void and restoring his presence. Next, the woman. She blinked, terrified but alive. Then the man. Ethan hesitated. The mark flared, sending him a faint message. Some cannot be saved without destabilizing the rest. With a deep breath, he directed the light to preserve the balance of lives that could endure. The man vanished, leaving only silence and shadows. The mirror trembled. Ethan's reflection rippled and morphed, showing a version of himself hardened by impossible choices. The walker's judgment, the voice returned, chilling, omnipresent. You chose with clarity, yet imperfection remains. You preserved some, and others were lost. Intent is your weapon, but perfection is unattainable. Remember this, chosen. Every decision echoes beyond your sight. The mirror shattered, fragments dissolving into mist. The city exhaled as if it had been holding its breath. Celine placed a steadying hand on Ethan's shoulder. You survived the mirror. Most do not. The walker will escalate further. It learns, it adapts, and it watches every choice you make. Ethan's chest heaved. The weight of the decisions pressed on him like stone, but determination glinted in his eyes. Then I will keep learning, I will keep choosing, and I will not let it win. The next step. Above, the skyline of New Avalon twisted subtly. Shadows pooled atop rooftops, gathering silently. The walker had seen his intent, measured his resolve, and somewhere beyond the city, its patient presence waited for the next trial, the one that would push Ethan to the edge of morality, courage, and endurance. The city, the shadows, and the walker itself were now inextricably bound to him. Every heartbeat carried the echoes of judgment, and Ethan knew the hardest choices were still ahead. The trial of the streets New Avalon had changed against, subtly, cruelly, deliberately. What had once been a city of geometric lines and predictable roads had become a maze of shifting corridors and looping intersections. Roads led back into themselves. Windows opened into darkness. Entire blocks rearranged when no one was looking. The walker was no longer merely twisting shadows. It was rewriting the city. Ethan felt it the moment his boots touched the asphalt. The mark on his arm pulsed like a heartbeat that wasn't his. Celine scanned the street. Even her voice held quiet fear. This is the trial of the streets. Every step forward hides a test. Every corner is a choice. And every choice affects another part of the city. Ethan nodded, jaw tight. Then let's start walking. 1. The street that sees you. They turned the first corner. Instantly, every window on both sides flickered alive, with glowing eyes, hundreds of them, watching, unblinking, ancient, not human, not animal, something older, something that had seen Ethan before he was born. The walker's voice crawled across the cracked pavement. Every street is a witness. Walk with clarity, or the watchers will decide your fate. Ethan kept his gaze forward. The eyes tracked every motion. The mark warmed against his skin, sensing judgment, hunger, curiosity. Celine whispered, "Don't show fear. These are the observer's reflections of your subconscious doubts. If you acknowledge them, they devour clarity." Ethan swallowed. "Then let's give them nothing." He moved steadily forward. The eyes blinked in disappointment and dissolved like mist. 2. The road of echoes. The next street was worse. As Ethan stepped onto the cracked asphalt, his footsteps echoed unnaturally, then multiplied. Suddenly, dozens of footsteps marched behind him, perfectly synchronized, mimicking but not human. Selena's expression sharpened. "The walker is copying your intent. Be careful. If your resolve wavers, your echoes will turn against you." Ethan stepped again. Step, step, step. Dozens echoed back, but one was slightly wrong, delayed by a fraction, a broken version of him. Then they emerged from the shadows, silhouettes shaped like Ethan but hollow, their edges fuzzy like static. Each held a distorted version of his posture, his stance, his intent. One spoke in a warped version of his voice. "Your choices create us." Another, "Your mistakes strengthen us." A third pressed forward, "Choose wrong, and you become one of us." The street trembled. Ethan felt fear rising, but he crushed it. He raised his hand, letting the mark blaze with light. "I'm not your puppet," he said, "and I don't fear my own shadow." The echoes screamed, dissolving violently into black smoke. Celine gave him a rare smile. "Good, but this isn't the end." 3. The intersection of lives. They reached a massive roundabout at the heart of New Avalon. Here, the city had prepared its most complex trial. 4 streets converged, each filled with civilians trapped inside shadow prisons, frozen mid-motion, eyes wide with terror. Above them towered massive constructs made of condensed darkness, writhing like serpents. Selena's face tightened. "Ethan, this is a multi-branch trial. You can't save everyone. The walker wants to see how you weigh lives." Ethan clenched his fists. His heartbeat echoed through the mark. For a moment, everything froze. Even the shadows held still. Then the walker whispered, "For directions, for choices. Your intent determines who breathes and who vanishes." The mark pulsed. Ethan felt every life simultaneously: fear, pain, desperation. Each path had a consequence. Each choice mattered. He acted, not with instinct, not with panic, but with clarity. He sent threads of light into the streets, prioritizing stability, saving the clusters that anchored the web, sacrificing the points where rescue would collapse the entire grid. It was brutal, efficient, balanced. 2 streets were saved. 1 was stabilized. 1 fell. Shadows swallowed the lost civilians silently. Ethan bowed his head. Celine placed a hand on his shoulder. You chose the path that saved the most. The walker will not be pleased, but it will learn from you as you learn from it. 4. The street that remembers. As they exited the intersection, the city shifted again, forming a narrow alleyway. Ethan recognized instantly his street, his childhood street. Same cracked pavement, same leaning street lamp, same shadows he used to fear as a boy. Celine whispered, surprised. This wasn't here before. Of course it wasn't. This was his memory. The walker was mining his past. A small shadow child stepped forward, Ethan's younger self, trembling, crying, eyes filled with a familiar fear. Little Ethan whispered, "Why did you stop being afraid of the dark?" Ethan knelt, voice soft, "Because I learned to walk into it." The shadow child smiled a heartbreaking, innocent smile, then dissolved in a gentle wave of light. Celine exhaled. It's learning your emotional structure. It's preparing for something deeper. Ethan stood slowly. He felt the city rumble. The web shifted again. The walker was no longer only testing him, it was mapping him. 5. The walker's decree. The sky tore open with a thunderless crack. The walker's massive silhouette filled the horizon, its form a writhing mass of shadow tendrils and impossible geometry. Its voice shook the streets. You adapt, you endure, you choose with clarity. But the trials of the streets are only the beginning. Next, you will face what cannot be chosen. Ethan felt a cold dread settle over him. Celine whispered, "He means the paradox trials, tests where every answer is wrong, and every wrong answer has meaning." Ethan raised his head, eyes burning with resolve. Then let it come. The walker fell silent. The shadows deepened. The city held its breath. Part 11 ended with a quiet, terrible certainty. The real battle hadn't even started. The paradox trials knew Avalon slept uneasily beneath a sky of shifting black geometry. The walker had withdrawn into silence, but in that silence was intent, calculation, and the chilling promise of something far worse than the trials of the streets. Ethan felt it before it happened. A tension in the air, a pressure behind the eyes, a distortion in the mark on his arm, as if reality itself were being folded and refolded by an unseen hand. Celine stood beside him, atop the ruined sky bridge overlooking the city. The walker is preparing the next phase. This won't be like the others. A paradox trial isn't meant to test your strength or your morality. She paused, her silver eyes sharpening. It's meant to break your certainty. Ethan swallowed, but didn't look away from the swirling darkness above the skyline. Then let's see what it thinks it can break. 1. The first paradox, save the wrong life. The world blinked. Not turned dark, not distorted, blinked like the shutter of an invisible camera. Suddenly, Ethan stood inside a burning apartment. Smoke choked the air. Flames crawled along the walls. Screams echoed behind collapsed furniture. Celine was gone. He was alone. The mark on his arm pulsed violently. From the flames, 2 figures appeared, a young woman, bruised and terrified. Ethan didn't know her. An older man, coughing, bleeding. Ethan recognized him. It was Jonas Hale, one of the survivors from the previous trial. The walker's voice whispered through the fire, soft as breath against skin. Save one, lose one, but the one you save will cause more deaths in the future. Ethan froze. That was the paradox. Save the innocent woman gives she would unknowingly set a chain reaction that would lead to disaster. Save Jonas gives fewer people would die, but the innocent woman's life would be the price. The mark flickered. His instincts screamed one thing. His logic screamed another. And for the first time since this began, Ethan didn't know which path was truly right. The fire closed in. Time was running out. Finally, Ethan whispered, "I save based on who I am, not based on predictions. The walker feeds me." He grabbed Jonas and dragged him through the flames, shielding him from falling debris. Behind him, the woman screamed. Then her voice was swallowed by the inferno. The fire vanished instantly. Ethan was back on the sky bridge. Celine stood beside him again, but her expression was grim. "You chose the path with fewer casualties," she said. But the walker didn't care about the numbers. Ethan clenched his jaw. It wanted to see if I'd let it manipulate my intent with fear. Celine nodded, and it learned something, too. The second paradox, the lie that saves lives. The city cracked open like an egg. Light poured from beneath the streets, then darkened, turning into a swirling vortex that lifted Ethan and Celine into a white void. A single door appeared. Behind it echoed millions of panicked voices. Celine stiffened, a paradox sphere. Ethan pushed the door open. He stood on a massive stage, facing thousands of citizens of New Avalon. Their eyes were wide, afraid. Sirens blared in the distance. The sky above them fractured like broken glass. A holographic screen floated before Ethan, showing two messages. Truth. The walker is everywhere. You cannot escape. Lie. The danger is contained. Stay calm and remain indoors. The walker's voice slithered through his skull. Speak the truth, and they will panic. Riots will destroy the city. Speak the lie, and their calmness will save thousands. Ethan's breath hitched. To save the city, he had to lie. But lying meant becoming the very thing the walker wanted, a manipulator of intent, a shaper of perception. Like it, Celine whispered behind him. Whatever choice you make, it will echo. The paradox isn't the message, it's what the message makes you become. Ethan closed his eyes. Then he spoke into the microphone without hesitation. You're safe. Stay inside. Help each other. Do not panic. A lie, a necessary lie, a lie that saved thousands. The void shattered. 3. The third paradox. The self you cannot save, Ethan, appeared in an abandoned street, bathed in pale moonlight. A lone figure stood at the far end of the road, facing away. Ethan approached cautiously. The figure turned. It was him. Same eyes, same stance, same mark. Except this version looked exhausted, haunted, already broken. The walker's voice wrapped around Ethan like a noose. This is the version of you created by your choices. He has walked into despair. Save him, and you will take his place. Destroy him, and you will erase part of yourself. Ethan felt the world tilt. This was the cruelest paradox yet. He stepped toward his broken self, who whispered in a trembling voice, I failed. I made all the wrong choices. I can't carry this anymore. Ethan's heart twisted. If he saved this other self, he must absorb all its despair. If he destroyed it, he would be killing his own weakness, but losing a piece of his humanity in the process. He whispered back, I'm not here to destroy you. Ethan placed his hand on his double's shoulder. Light flowed from the mark. It didn't destroy. It didn't absorb. It integrated. Ethan took the broken version into himself, not as a sacrifice, but as acceptance. The two selves merged. Pain, fear, regret, strength, clarity. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was whole, not perfect, but whole. Celine stood beside him again, shock in her voice. You solved a paradox without choosing one side. That's impossible. Ethan exhaled shakily. No, I just refused to let the walker define the rules. Thunder rumbled across the sky, not weather, but anger. The walker's silhouette appeared above the skyline once more, trembling with agitation. You break the trials, you reshape intent. You defy the logic of shadow. A pause, a long one, then very well chosen. Next, I will test not your choices, but your identity. The city groaned. Shadows rippled across every surface. Streetlights flared and shattered. The sky dimmed to the color of bruised bone. Ethan's pulse quickened. Celine whispered, "Ethan, this means the next stage is," he finished quietly, "the trials of self."